Welcome back to Tools and Snacks. Tonight it is standard pizza time. Now, a few episodes ago, many episodes ago, I discussed that I'd got special sprinkles from Norway, and then we ran out because it's from Norway. However, one of my patrons, Jimmy, has sent me special sprinkles. It's not from Norway, but we're going to try it. Daniel liberally applying the heart attack dust. Salt. And assault on the chips.
It's a big portion of chips.
Distribution of special sprinkles. I mean,
Didn't know there.
well, I mean, it's not exactly a salt shaker, is it?
Why you hold it higher in the air so it's not just
Why
dousing?
don't you just focus on your own labours? It's got a wee zest to that. It's not bad.
Right, I'm done videoing you. I'm just going to eat now.
So the last crime that I have to delete was the chopping of parts from my loom.
It wasn't really a crime.
Well, I mean, it was a crime to the Locost. It wasn't a crime to the ultimate goal of having a fast MX-5.
Yeah, we kind of had no choice. It was like we either done it or the car didn't move.
Yeah. So on this, which matched at the time the MX-5,
Yes.
we've got a six plug.
There is a reason for that.
It was all we had.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like we just like bulky plugs.
No, there were no 3 pins available.
However,
so.
Brian, having now become an essential member of this unit, has left all his. These are Deutsch, aren't they?
Yeah.
Deutsch connectors. So there's a 3-pin male, female, and male there. But what we're going to do, because we're wicked smart that way, is we're going to maintain the compatibility of this. So what I've ordered, if you look on the Locost, is, pardon my jeans, a replacement plug that will go from here with tails. I say look at the Locost, they'll take it off and put it back in here. Ah yes, there it is. One AliExpress special for £3.
Yeah, because this is literally going to be on it till it's past IVA.
Yeah, and
then it just goes straight back off. So.
But it'll work. The thing is, it will work. So we're just going to put a tail on there, and then another one of these.
Yeah.
On that loom.
Yeah, I'm going to wire it so that this and this are the same, so that when you swap them,
Yeah, you can just
unplug it and plug in. You don't have to worry about wiring.
Crucially, this is the only wire these need to run. Well, apart from the fuel injectors, but they're compatible anyway.
Yeah, so we're just going to make this so that this can go in for now, and then we just put the other one in.
Because we are forward thinking. And if anything will prevent this ever happening, it is the ensuring it will happen at a future point with ease.
Yeah.
Because that just seems to be what happens with us.
Yeah, you try and plan ahead and it doesn't work.
Yeah, these don't match. Look.
It doesn't match. Yeah, that didn't go well. I don't know why that's...
Like I
was
said,
that the car it was hitting?
No, it's the raw power.
Definitely not.
It will be. Well, that's suction because of the trumpets. No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, now that we've got it out, it would be rude not to deal with some body fitment issues. And by fitment, I mean that I can rest body panels on and nothing more. So in the interest of having a test drive coming up, let's see if we can get some stuff more permanently affixed. First up, the scuttle. Now, a few episodes ago, if you cast your mind back, I managed to make sure that the scuttle would remain in place with 2 bolts. And 2 bolts is probably not going to be good enough. So I'm going to want to add another bolt here and another bolt here. However, I've more or less resisted doing that for a number of reasons up until now, because the 2 bolts in at the front are actually through the aluminium sheet, and you know, they're quite far away from the chassis legs. If I was to put another 2 bolts in at the back, well, they're right on those inch wide chassis legs, and there's not really a lot of space and it's not going to look very neat. So I've decided I'm going to go with riv nuts. Now the reason for that being, it's going to be secure, it's pretty easy to deal with, but I've up until now resisted riv nuts because riv nuts, with the best will in the world, have a lip at the top. It's only a couple of mil, but it's still a lip, and it's still something that's going to offset that entire scuttle up a bit. Now, up until now, I've been like, well, I don't know if I want that. It's going to be a bit of a gap, but the fitment of that scuttle is absolute garbage. In fact, if you have a look here, you'll see that it overhangs at the end on that side, and it also overhangs in the end on that side. So it's not going to matter. It's going to be good enough for a Rev 1. So I also have decided that the bonnet and its need to attach is going to have to be IVA compliant. So we're going to have to put a couple of latches on either side and pull the bonnet down onto this bit. So in order to make sure it does that without really causing any rattles, squeaks or otherwise, I'll need to insulate that gap, which means rubber. Now, I had a wee look through a box of rubber, and during that remembered that I have a big old strip of nice big chunky rubber that might have worked. Unfortunately, this big chunky rubber is too chunky and it's not very compliant. So the idea of using that stuff there would probably work, but the problem is I'm going to try and get the line to match here, which means adding, well, I would say 10 mil of gap there, and for no good reason, because it doesn't really need it. So instead, what I'm going to do is get some generic door seal stuff. And the idea being with that, when this bonnet latches down, it will actually compress the door seal and it will actually give a kind of much smaller gap. But still, the compression will mean it will seal, not move and not rattle, which is kind of what I'm aiming for. But I'm going to continue that rubber seal right the way under the scuttle, which means you get a continuous line. It also means the scuttle has the same benefits that the bonnet will have. And, well, it'll look as neat as it's going to look. So I need to go order some, but before I do that, we need to add 4 points of contact in the skull so that it's squared. Right, so that's 4 riv nuts in. I've not really tightened it down because I'm going to just immediately take it back off, but you'll see I've widened the backs out just to allow me a bit of manoeuvrability, and we're going to go with big washers. Probably will put washers in the front to spread the load a bit, but, well, they did not need to be quite as big as the ones in the back. Now, I'm going to take this back off because I need to deal with the dash, which we have started, lost momentum on, and then didn't bother with. And that's where we need to have another chat, because this is coming off for me to do that, which means that I'm finally going to do the thing that I think it was Tibor that actually suggested. We're just going to cut a line so we can get by this loom, because without it, we need to unloom everything, and I'm just not doing that. So you can shove up your arse. I've always maintained this dash is going to be a slow burner because there's no plans for this. I'm having to make it up as I go, so I'm taking my time and finding inspiration. But ultimately, we're putting the MX5 clocks back in because speedo, revs, fuel, I've decided to use it, and coolant, not to mention oil, they're all encapsulated in one handy little binnacle, and it's not going to be too much effort to reinstate that. I say not too much. In my haste to summarise a wiring loom, I have binned the 3 instrument connectors that go into the back of that. So I'm going to have to go and find a scrapper from somewhere and see if I can get the cuts for the tails, and then ultimately reinstate that bit of the loom from the ECU. which is going to take time. Also, this nice sharp edge here for the visor, well, that's not going to be IVA compliant. Similarly, if I'm sitting in the car, I'm probably not going to be able to see the tops of the gauges, so some surgery and off-piste fabrication may be required here as well. But we have the bones of it. I'm also thinking about the fuse box. If there's somewhere, not somehow, that I can incorporate it into the dash, I might think about that too. Failing that, we might just lop this off and have the fuse box as a separate thing. I don't know. As I've said, it's all a bit of improvisational stuff. Now, that means I'm going to pin this because I need to go get some bits, but I did promise in the last episode that we were going to go and drive a Locost. Now, since Daniel's made up a nice wee adapter loom, there's no reason this thing shouldn't start. Anyone for some deja vu? We are on the precipice of taking this out for another test run. Now, cash in mind, back about 6 months or so, we did this and it wouldn't. So it starts, it runs, it moves, and then it bogs down. This is the last thing we need to deal with before we move on to getting it out to track, because once it does that, we can start dialing in all the suspension and make it run good and proper. So why is it doing it and how do we diagnose it? Well, we should really look at how we diagnose it first, because when it moves and bogs down, I'm in the car, so I can't really do much with it. So let's try and replicate that without me being in the car. Or I will be in the car, but without it being in the road. Listen, I'll show you in a minute.
Car.
Is that your specialist subject? Mastermind?
Car.
Car. Right, I give up, because my original thoughts here was this not having power issue was down to when you put it in gear and move, so hence we jacked up outside and I tried it. But then, like, it was doing it. I don't know why I never thought to do this, but I just tried holding RPM up and it does the same thing.
Yeah.
So this is not a speed related problem. This is, there's an actual electronic issue somewhere problem.
Yeah, there's a sensor somewhere that's not happy. So we've plugged in.
Yeah, we're just skipping to the end.
Plugged in the ME to basically try and figure out what's not connected.
Yeah, so the ME, the problem is this would normally tell you stuff had I not chopped off all of the diagnostics. So, but it wouldn't tell you much anyway, because it wasn't.
No, wouldn't really tell you much.
Pretty Spartan in the diagnostics.
Plus the thing is, we've got so much stuff not connected that if you check the fault codes of that, you're going to get a whole list of
spurious nonsense.
Yeah, that you're like, where do you start? So,
yeah. So instead, we're going to this, which will, in a very different way, tell us an answer, because...
Well, yeah, we can view all the sensors with this, so if there's one that very obviously is not correct, then chances are that's probably what's wrong.
I'd imagine so. So let's do that. So step one, we're going to have to obviously power the ECU up. And the reason we hadn't really went with this guy over that guy is because the alternator was not enjoying life.
Yeah, for some reason it's got completely the wrong base map in it. So we tried starting it at one point and it just went to what?
Fuel.
19 volts or something?
It was basically all of it, the maximum amount of volts. So
is the ignition still on?
The ignition is still on.
Right, that's fine.
Ultimately, it would have been then simpler to go back to the original one, because there's obviously a firmware issue somewhere with it, so we didn't bother with it.
Yeah.
However, now
we'll just fix that because we actually need it.
Ultimately, that is going to end up here at the end. So we might as well just put it in there now and make the IVA stuff compliant on that, rather than waste any more time. The only annoyance for me is 3 episodes worth of trying to make the immobiliser work, which is now completely pointless. But this does give us the power to work things out a bit easier.
In usual fashion, this motorsport electronic software is not opening.
Plug and play.
It's good stuff, it's really good.
I hear a big V6 spot of some description. I'm going to imagine that's a brine.
How's a Brian?
Is anyone watching able to do that? Like instantly be able to identify your friend's car's pulling up because of the noise it makes? Here's Brian. All right. Well, it's not quiet, so apologies if anyone thinks they're going to be able to hear me. And I have a lot of foot room, so I might be needing skinnier shoes next time. But it's driving. It starts, stops, moves. The steering wheels are turning. This is good so far. I'm going to go very, very, very short distance with this, just to make sure it goes through gears. Which it does. This is good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's not take the piss. Check my mirrors that I don't have. Okay, success. It drives in a straight line and it turns. This is the days of my skater shoes on this are over, because that's right. So there's my, I'm on here, clutch in, brake in.
Yeah. Do you want me to adjust this so that it's not
Right, let us be under no illusion. That is a win. The car now runs and we are at the finishing stages of getting this guy on track. Naturally, I'm going to have to draw up a list in the next episode, and it is very much just a snagging list because this works. For anyone wondering why the old ECU wasn't working, because we did just jump straight into driving it, every sensor that the new ECU was looking for was present and worked. So the only thing the ECU doesn't need is the airflow meter, because it runs on a vac source. So I'm guessing this airflow meter is probably duff, but I'm not going to bother actually buying a replacement because we just don't need it. I'm buying a replacement to put an old ECU in that isn't required anymore. So anyway, the point being, in the next episode, we are going to be pushing for this done by a ton. And I'm going to start putting a bit of criteria on what done means. This will race. This is going to be used on track by episode 100. So that gives me 9 episodes, which is frankly plenty. There's no chance it'll get IVA'd before then, but we probably will start putting some prep in those 9 coming episodes just to get that IVA ready. But by 100, it's going round a track. So, patreon.com/toolsandtrack for anyone who wants to say awesome, well done, buy us a coffee. If that's not for you, cool. Just do the like bell and subscribe things at the bottom of the screen wherever they live. And until next weekend, guys, drive safe.